We've all got secrets, but some secrets are much darker than others. Hugo Boss is a fashion brand associated with wealth, elegance, and status, and it is worn by countless prominent celebrities. But this fashion icon has done all it can to hide its dark past from the public eye. This is the story of how Hugo Boss supported Hitler, made uniforms for the Nazis, and yet somehow cleansed its image and built a global fashion empire. In the heart of Germany, 1885, a story unfolds in a town renowned for its textile prowess. Here we meet a young boy named Hugo Boss. Born into a family that owned a modest lingerie shop. Raised in the very fibers of the fashion industry, Hugo's fascination with style grew with each passing day. A tale like no other, this boy's journey began as he took on various jobs to unravel the secrets of the industry. From apprenticing as a merchant to working in a textile mill, Hugo's determination shone through. But fate had other plans. World War I came knocking, and our protagonist eagerly answered the call, putting his dreams on hold to serve his country. The war left its mark on Hugo, but he emerged with a renewed vision. He transformed his parents' humble shop into a tailor's, crafting a brand that bore his name. His persistence paid off, and before long the small shop blossomed into a thriving factory. Hugo Boss jackets, shirts, workwear, sportswear, and raincoats began to garner attention across Germany. But as the adage goes, every rose has its thorn. Germany faced crippling debt after the war, with reparations looming large. The Roaring Twenties brought prosperity for some, but for Germany it was a time of struggle. The once booming economy faltered, and even Hugo Boss's soaring popularity couldn't save his company from the downturn. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the Great Depression cast its shadow over the nation. As scarcity and despair became the norm, Hugo desperately tried to salvage his business by producing uniforms for the German police and government officials, but it wasn't enough. The factory doors closed, the workforce disbanded, and Hugo Boss found himself at rock bottom. Left with only 6 sewing machines, it seemed as if the dream had slipped through his fingers and the tale of Hugo Boss clothing brand was destined for an untimely end. But as history has shown us time and time again, even the darkest of nights will eventually give way to the dawn. In a time of desperation, Germany found itself seeking solace in the most unlikely of places. It was in this darkness that a figure emerged, a man who would change history forever, Adolf Hitler. And amidst the chaos, Hugo Boss saw an opportunity to salvage his sinking ship. As Hitler's power grew, so did the need for uniforms. Hugo Boss, once an active Nazi Party member since 1931, knew that rubbing shoulders with the right people could land him lucrative government contracts. He wasted no time in building connections and making a name for himself amongst the high-ranking officials. With only 6 sewing machines at his disposal, Hugo embarked on his new venture, creating uniforms for the burgeoning Nazi Party. From the infamous brown shirts to the military, police, and Hitler Youth attire, Hugo's association with the Nazis catapulted his business to unprecedented heights. To keep up with the growing demand, Hugo took out loans to expand his operation, amassing an army of sewing machines and workers. The once struggling business was now a thriving enterprise, fueled by the dark ambitions of the Nazi regime. And as Europe succumbed to Hitler's conquest, Hugo Boss found himself benefiting from the forced labor of French and Polish workers. While he did ensure they were fed, their living conditions were far from ideal, and the threat of concentration camps loomed over them if they failed to meet their expectations. But what truly drove Hugo Boss to align with the Nazi Party? Was it merely a strategic decision to save his failing business? Or did he truly believe in their cause? A researcher who wrote a book on Hugo Boss concluded that he was not only motivated by the financial prospects, but was also a loyal Nazi and a follower of National Socialism. In his apartment, a photo of him with Hitler served as a testament to his allegiance. When the war came to an end and the Nazi regime crumbled, Hugo Boss was investigated for his involvement. He was found to be an activist and financial beneficiary of the Nazi Party, and as a result, he was banned from owning a business. In 1984, Hugo Boss passed away, and it seemed as though his story would fade into the annals of history. But as we all know, the Hugo Boss name lives on, thriving as a multi-billion-dollar fashion empire. So what happened next? Hey guys, before we delve into the next part of this captivating story, if you find these videos interesting, please consider subscribing to Academy of Wealth and turning on notifications. I'm currently working on even bigger projects, and by hitting the notification bell, you'll be the first to know when they're ready. And now, let's get back to the story. Following the death of Hugo Boss, the remnants of the once thriving company fell into the hands of his son-in-law, Eugene Holy. Determined to keep the business alive, Eugene produced uniforms for the police and postal workers, barely keeping the brand afloat without the lucrative Nazi contracts. It wasn't until the early 1950s that the Hugo Boss company was tasked with producing an order of suits. The suits they created seemed very popular. This was the major turning point for the business, and Eugene realized there could be an opportunity here to reshape the Hugo Boss brand, distancing it from its dark past. He poured resources into crafting elegant, high-quality suits that caught the attention of style-conscious German men. Under Eugene's guidance, Hugo Boss transformed from a simple uniform brand to an esteemed German fashion tailor. The company flourished, surpassing the success it had experienced under its original founder. But behind the scenes, the company fought an ongoing battle to keep the founder's political views and activism under wraps, fully aware of the potential PR disaster that lurked in the shadows. In 1969, Eugene retired, entrusting the family business to his two ambitious sons. They were determined to propel Hugo Boss into the global fashion spotlight, turning the brand into an icon that would transcend generations. But as with any story of triumph, the question remains: can the Hugo Boss brand truly shed the weight of its past and rise above the ashes of its controversial beginnings? The two brothers who inherited the company from their father embarked on a journey to rebrand Hugo Boss as a premium men's designer brand, specializing in luxurious suits. By narrowing their focus, they honed their craft and elevated the quality of their products, soon gaining an impeccable reputation. Breaking from tradition, they began using Italian materials known for their softness and lightness, rather than the stiffer German fabrics. They modernized their factories, increased their workforce, and took the bold step of manufacturing abroad, a rarity for a proud German company at the time. With these changes, the brothers successfully distanced the brand from its Nazi roots, repositioning it as a symbol of post-war German excellence. As part of their rebranding efforts, they renamed the company simply as Boss. Under the brothers' leadership, Boss thrived in Germany, but their aspirations reached far beyond national borders. They dreamed of making Boss a global fashion powerhouse. To achieve this, they invested heavily in marketing, securing endorsement deals with top race car drivers and plastering Boss branding on their cars. This move helped them break into the US market, selling their first suit in America in 1976. They also enlisted the help of A-list celebrities like Sylvester Stallone to model their suits, making Boss the go-to brand for the stylish and ambitious. The timing couldn't have been better, as the yuppie movement of the 1980s saw a surge in demand for premium suits. Boss capitalized on this trend, eventually expanding into fragrances, accessories, and other product lines. By 1985, their fragrance line had become one of their most profitable ventures, and the company's value skyrocketed. Despite their success, the brothers were exhausted and ready for a change. In 1989, they sold the majority of their shares to a Japanese company, Leighton House Group. While they retained some influence in the company, they relinquished control of its daily operations. It seems the brothers had cashed out at just the right moment. But what would become of the company without their guiding hands? The golden era of Hugo Boss couldn't last forever. As the yuppie era faded and economic turmoil gripped key markets like Germany and the United States, high-end fashion became less attainable for many. By 1993, Hugo Boss stock was trading at less than half the price the brothers had sold their shares for just 4 years earlier. Sales plummeted, and the new owners knew they had to act fast to save the company. They split the brand into 3 distinct entities. Boss would continue to offer high-end suits, while the newly created Baldessarini brand, named after their chief designer, would serve as the exclusive fashion arm. A third brand, Hugo, targeted young customers. To ensure their clothing remained accessible during these challenging times, they introduced more affordable options. The company also worked to shed its overly masculine image, expanding into women's clothing and fragrances. These changes attracted new customers, and by the late 90s, profits were on the rise. However, when CEO Peter Littman left in 1997, the company struggled to find a suitable successor. It was Baldessarini, their chief designer, who eventually stepped up to the plate. Reluctant at first, he soon recognized the potential for even greater growth. Under his leadership, Hugo Boss diversified further, offering sportswear, casual clothing, underwear, and accessories like sunglasses. They also forged connections with the film industry, providing wardrobe items for some of the biggest blockbusters of the 90s and early 2000s. Embracing the power of celebrity, they returned to their roots in high-profile advertising, featuring famous models and celebrities of the time. These decisions helped cement Hugo Boss's status as a global fashion powerhouse. Today, Hugo Boss remains one of the most successful fashion brands in the world, with its products sold in over 90 countries. From its humble beginnings as a small German tailor shop, it has become synonymous with wealth and impeccable design. Celebrities continue to model for the brand, with Chris Hemsworth recently stepping into Sylvester Stallone's former role as the face of Hugo Boss. But not all celebrity attention for the brand has been positive. In 2013, Russell Brand made waves at a GQ Awards ceremony sponsored by Hugo Boss. Upon receiving his reward, he remarked,
"Any of you that know a little bit about history and fashion will know that Hugo Boss made the uniforms for the Nazis. And the Nazis did have flaws, but, they did look fantastic, let's face it."
While Hugo Boss still faces scrutiny for its past, the company has made efforts to right some of its wrongs. In 1999, Hugo Boss established a fund to repay their slave laborers for their work and traumatic experiences. And in 2011, they publicly apologized for the first time, expressing profound regret to those who suffered harm or hardship at the factory run by Hugo Boss under National Socialist rule. Today, Hugo Boss actively supports charities focusing on education and development in impoverished regions. So can the sins of the past be separated from the present? The original founder is long gone, and the company is owned by an entirely different group with seemingly positive intentions. Yet, with the brand bearing the name Hugo Boss, it's challenging to forget its true origins. What's surprising is the number of major fashion brands with dark histories. Check out the stories of these other companies and prepare to be shocked. Thanks for watching. Cheers.